Subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Click the bell button and enjoy the latest uploads from our channel.
Events. What are they? We've mentioned events in the past. I even said how learning about functions and event triggers will change the way you create websites. That's because they add a new level of interactivity to your pages. An event is something that happens when an action is taken on a web page. We have a few to go through. We have on-click, double-click, focus, blur, mouse down, mouse up, mouse move, mouse out, mouse over, key down, key press, and on key up. Some of these are pretty similar to each other, but there are little differences, and each event has its own use. Events, so all of these in this list here, are global attributes that can be applied to almost any HTML element. How do we apply them? Just like every other attribute, where type is the attribute and button is the value. In our example here, on-click would be the attribute, and in here would be our function. It would have to be a JavaScript function, of course, and all events are written like this. Now, the attribute is not case sensitive because it's HTML. However, the value, which is JavaScript, that is case sensitive. Where if we look for function with the lowercase f, it's not the same thing as function with an uppercase f. So let's look at our first event. That's the on-click. And this event is the one that will take place when you or the user clicks the element. So what we have is function name, and all it's going to do is alert us with Caleb. That's my name. And then in the body we have just a regular span element. On click is the attribute, and our value is our function name. So as a span, it's not going to change the way the mouse looks. So when I put my mouse over it, it looks like it's not clickable at all. But what happens when I click it? It runs the function of name, which alerts Caleb. On double click, this is pretty much the same thing as on click, only you have to click the element twice and fairly quick. So as an example here, we just have function double click. We have a parameter. In here is our parameter, and we just pass it into here, so it's going to alert us with my custom text. The attribute is on double click, and you notice I can keep clicking it like this, nothing's going to happen. I have to click it twice pretty fast for it to actually activate. There we go, I double clicked it, and function double click, my custom text, which was the parameter, has now alerted us. With text areas, we're given a couple different options when it comes to text areas or an input field. The first one is on focus. When a web page has a text field and you or another user clicks the field and starts typing, they're focusing on that field. As soon as they click inside of it and you are allowed to type, you are focusing on it. Here's an example of how they work when we focus on them. We have an input element, on focus is our attribute, and start focus is our value. Remember, the event value is supposed to be a JavaScript function. Doesn't always have to be, but just to keep things simple, that's what we're sticking with. Start focus is our function name, matches down here, including the brackets. And when we focus on it, it should run this function, which will then run this code, like so. It now says that we are focused. So when I click in here, it's going to alert us with you are focused. And that's exactly what it did. Now, the opposite of on focus is on blur, and that's when you click outside of a text area. When you become unfocused on something, you are blurring away from it. Kind of like your eyesight. When you focus on something, you're trying to see it. When you're really not focusing, something far in the distance could get blurry. Attribute is on blur. Value is our function name, start blur, and it will alert us you are leaving the field, /n, that's new line in JavaScript, blurred. So I click in, nothing happens. I can type stuff, nothing happens. I click out, and it activates. That's because we blurred away from the field. Remember, blur is the opposite of focus. I also want to let you know that you can have more than one event. So here we have on double click, on focus, and on blur. All we have to do is throw in a few JavaScript functions, and all three of them will work. On top of clicking events and focus and blur events, we also have mouse events. This includes moving your mouse over an element, out of an element, clicking the mouse down, and releasing the mouse button, as well as movement. The first one to go over is on mouse over. We can call a JavaScript function when we put our mouse over an element. So here all I did was style it so you know exactly what we're looking at. I'm going to remove this just to make this code a little bit cleaner.